The Late Breakfast Show Incident. On November 13th, 1986, inside a BBC studio in London, 25-year-old Michael Lush prepared for a rehearsal of the Late Breakfast shows. The show had become known for unpredictable, high-risk entertainment featured during its weekend broadcasts. Producers planned a segment called Hang 'em High, involving a live bungee-style jump from a crane positioned above the studio floor. Safety concerns had already surfaced earlier in the season, including a stunt driver seriously injured during a previous challenge. The setup required Lush to step off a platform roughly 120 feet high, with his harness secured through a single connection point. The carabiner meant to hold the line had never been load tested, and no secondary safety rope was in place to back it up. He took a steadying breath, tightened his grip on the side rail, and pushed himself forward into the jump. The moment his weight hit the line, the carabiner burst open with a sharp metallic snap, a crack that cut through the air. The cord recoiled upward as he dropped, his body accelerating instantly into a 37-meter fall toward the concrete floor. A heavy impact followed, his body collapsing under the immense force of the fall. Studio staff rushed from their stations, sliding across the floor as they reached him. Medics moved in quickly and began chest compressions beside the fallen rig, working against the severe trauma. Their efforts continued for several minutes before medical teams confirmed that no vital signs remained. Michael Lush was pronounced dead at the scene. A BBC investigation cited fatal negligence and a lack of safety oversight during the stunt's planning. Days later, the program was permanently canceled, and the network issued a public apology to Lush's family. The Wowowee Incident. On February 4th, 2006, outside the PhilSports Stadium in Pasig, Elena Montero stood in line with thousands of other attendees waiting for the first anniversary special of the television game show Wowowee. Prizes including cars, houses, and cash had attracted crowds who camped overnight to secure entry. Barricades strained under pressure, as only a small number of security personnel were positioned near the gates. The entrance was scheduled to open at 6 a.m., but rumors spread that only the first 10,000 would be admitted. When staff began handing out raffle tickets, the crowd surged forward. The stadium's narrow access ramp funneled the mass of people into a single corridor, increasing compression at the front. At 6:05 a.m., the pushing intensified as thousands pressed shoulder to shoulder at the gate. Elena was driven toward the gate, her body pressed flat as hundreds behind her pushed without control. Each new shove tightened the crush, forcing her chest against the metal until she couldn't lift her head or move her arms. When the front line collapsed, she was dragged downward with the shifting mass, swallowed by the fall of bodies around her. Feet struck her as people tried to stay upright, and the weight from multiple directions pinned her to the ground. Anyone who stumbled added to the force pressing down, turning every movement into a struggle to breathe. Screams rose above the roar of the crowd as the gate bent inward under the compression. Police attempted to approach the entrance, but the pathway was clogged with tightly packed bodies. Ambulances filled the surrounding roads while medics treated victims along the stadium perimeter. 73 people were confirmed dead, and more than 400 suffered injuries of varying severity. Television broadcasts were halted immediately, and the stadium was closed for official investigation. The event was later recognized as the deadliest disaster connected to a game show in history. The Snake King Incident. On December 1st, 2006, in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, veteran performer Ali Khan Samsudin, known nationwide as the Snake King, stepped onto a small arena stage to demonstrate a new routine involving a king cobra. For decades, Ali Khan had built his reputation on high-risk acts with cobras and vipers before live audiences. Assistants arranged several cobras around him as spotlights illuminated the enclosed performance tent. Among them was a king cobra more than 3 meters long, a reptile that had appeared in previous shows but showed signs of agitation that evening. Spectators watched from a close semicircle as drums set a steady rhythm. Ali Khan moved with deliberate focus, maintaining constant eye contact with the cobra as the act began. As he leaned closer, the king cobra struck without hesitation. Its fangs sank into his left hand, drawing immediate gasps from the crowd. Ali Khan stepped back and raised his arm to display the wound, remaining composed despite the bleeding. Minutes passed as dizziness and weakness began to set in. Assistants moved toward him, but he signaled them to stay back, relying on his long history of surviving venomous bites. His breathing shortened and his posture weakened as the venom spread. Before medical teams arrived, he collapsed on the stage as the drumbeat continued in the background. Ali Khan Samsudin was transported to a nearby hospital, where he was pronounced dead shortly after arrival. News of his death spread across Malaysia within hours, marking the end of an era for high-risk, live animal stunt shows. His legacy continued in public memory as a performer who dedicated his life, and ultimately lost it, to the craft that defined his career. The reality show incident. On November 27, 2019, in Ningbo, China, 35-year-old actor and model Godfrey Gao was participating in the reality competition series Chase Me for Zhejiang Television. Gao was one of Asia's most recognizable models, widely known as the first Asian male to appear in a Louis Vuitton campaign, and for leading roles in Chinese television dramas. He was physically in excellent shape, maintaining a strong and athletic build throughout his career. Chase Me was structured as a late-night, high-intensity athletic program, where contestants spent the broadcast chasing each other through complex courses and completing demanding physical challenges. The production had already been filming throughout the entire day without meaningful breaks, with cast members cycling through multiple endurance segments. Gao had been on set since earlier in the day, moving through consecutive obstacle sections as the broadcast extended deep into the night. While running across a section of the course, Gao's stride began to shorten and his upper body dipped forward, as if his legs could no longer support his momentum. A few steps later, he lost balance entirely, collapsing face first onto the ground with his arms slack at his sides. He remained completely motionless, showing no attempt to brace his fall or push himself back up. Crew members positioned along the route immediately broke from their stations, rushing toward him and shouting for the medical team off camera. Even as they knelt beside him, Gao did not respond or show any voluntary movement. Paramedics arrived within moments and began emergency treatment directly on the set, working quickly while production staff cleared the surrounding area. Godfrey Gao was pronounced dead from cardiac arrest, leading Zhejiang Television to suspend production and issue a formal statement of regret. The incident triggered widespread scrutiny of safety practices in Chinese reality shows, particularly those involving overnight high-intensity filming. The Kinniku Banzuke Incident. On May 5, 2002, inside the TBS studios in Tokyo, 23-year-old contestant Masaru Takahashi prepared to run an obstacle sequence for the Japanese competition show Kinniku Banzuke. Known internationally as Muscle Ranking, the show featured strength and balance-based challenges attempted by athletes, military personnel, and civilian contestants. That day's taping included a difficult event called Rock Valley, built from narrow elevated platforms with large synthetic boulders swinging overhead. A 1.8-meter artificial boulder suspended from a steel cable was the primary moving element of the course. When the signal was given, Takahashi sprinted onto the first platform. Seconds later, the suspended boulder released from its arc. It dropped suddenly and rolled toward him with crushing force. He attempted to evade it, but the weight struck his upper body and knocked him violently to the floor. Crew members immediately called for medics and rushed onto the set. The incident became one of the most serious production accidents in Japanese television history, marking the end of the extreme stunt format that had defined Kinniku Banzuke.